Fans, and welcome to another episode of the Bleav in Astros podcast. I think it's 158 if I'm keeping count somewhere. I'm Jeff Balke
Okay.
here with Mike Stanton, as always, and we're in the meat of spring training. Three or 4 days into it.
Exhibitions have started, and
That's
that's
right.
a good thing for the players. That is not necessarily a good thing because now the
Right.
monotony of spring training comes around. Go, what are you talking about? You're in Florida. You're having the weather's nice. All that, yeah, that's all
Right.
true. But you have to remember, Major League Baseball players are really used to moving around. You're in a different
Yeah.
city every couple of days. There's a lot of things going on, and you kind of get used to that chaos. And when you're in
Yes.
spring training, it's kind of the same thing every day. Even when you go on the road, and you get on a bus, you come back to the same place. So now
Fascinating.
the countdown has started, and there is a countdown. Most of the players there know how many exhibition games there are, and they are counting down to the regular season. But we do have the WBC this year also.
That's right. And I will say this about spring training. We're a few days in here, like a weekend. The one thing that we've had a couple of games already on TV, which
Yes.
I thought was really
They've
kind
done
of
that the
cool.
last couple of years. They've done the Astros have. Now everybody's a little bit different. Actually, I was listening to the radio on MLB
Ugh, the
Network
radio's
Radio,
best.
and they were talking about why are there not more spring training games? And actually, the Astros, whatever network has been covering them, now it's Space City, it's their own.
Right.
They've always done. We've done as many as 10 a few years
Right.
ago, but I think
That's
that was
right.
pre-pandemic. Now it's 5,
Hmm.
6, and
Typically.
that's a pretty good number when you look around the league. I know the Colorado Rockies are only doing 2,
Right.
so
And they
I
don't always have radio either. Like radio is not, I mean, unless you're listening to MLB
Astros are
radio.
another one that is very good about that. They do. I think they broadcast, if not every game on the radio. They do pretty close to every
I
game.
think
I
it's
know Steve's.
everyone, but you can't always get it on terrestrial radio.
Maybe that's
Sometimes you
what
have
it
to
is.
get it from MLB radio, or you can
Right.
get it on Sirius probably.
Oh, those stinking business contracts.
I know. Well, God forbid we interrupt, a mid-afternoon talk show on sports talk radio.
Right, right.
Because I mean, listen, Matt Thomas is on 790. I'm sure
Mhm.
he would be more than happy to be like, yeah, I don't need to talk today. We can let
You
the
give me
Astros go ahead and
a
take my
day
spot.
off? No, I don't ever want a day off. Not
I
Matt,
know.
ever.
I know Matt. He would be totally fine with that.
Sure he would.
I know
Sure
he
he
would
would.
be totally good with that. So let's talk a few storylines here in spring training. One of the things you mentioned coming right off the bat, and I just read a little bit about this, was
Mhm.
I'm going to probably mispronounce. I'll try to get it right. Kai Wei Tang, which the Astros had traded for
We're going
a
with it.
pitcher. Yeah. Traded for him, brought him over. It was one of those things where he was not he did not have big numbers, right? But
Right.
he didn't have like these incredible numbers. He also hadn't pitched a boatload in the majors.
Has a big league ERA north of 6.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and
But
this was a late off season move.
right, it was.
And you looked at, you go, okay, can the Astros do their magic? They're kind of known for being able to help guys like
Correct.
this out because the stuff has never been a problem. The guy has
Correct.
always had good stuff, and he had his first outing, I believe, yesterday, and everybody was wooed by how good this stuff was. This
Yes.
big swing and miss there. It's good arm, got the ball moving. His off speed stuff looked good, and his biggest issue is he was in the zone, and
Right.
that's where
That's
he
the key.
really has to make a big step forward. And you talk to scouts, they will tell you that you have to take spring training baseball and September baseball, especially with young guys, you have to
Right.
take it with a little bit of a grain of salt
Yeah, of course.
because the sample sizes are small. Everything is very regimented, especially right now. Everyone's program is very regimented. They know
Right.
exactly when they're going to pitch. The second deck isn't on the stadium. And all that
Right.
buys into just a nice, cool, calm, collected, hey, let's just go out there and throw some strikes.
Right.
You go north, for the Astros, you go northwest. Things change.
Right.
So
And I think
you gotta curb the enthusiasm just a little bit,
Right.
even though the stuff is there and he shows what the potential is.
I think what's interesting about it is that one of the things that, of course, pitchers do this, and you can certainly attest to that yourself, is that pitchers work on pitches in spring training. They're not
Sure.
always throwing their repertoire of what they'll throw
It
during the
depends on
regular
who you
season.
are.
Yeah, right.
A guy like Tang probably isn't doing
You're
that now.
probably right.
He's probably been throwing bullpens for over a month now,
Right.
with the idea that he's trying to make a club.
Right.
When you're a veteran guy and you go in, and I can tell you there was not one spring training that I didn't go in and I was probably, and listen, I'm a short reliever.
Mhm.
I could have, especially with some of the times that I was under long-term contracts, I could have, backed off a little bit, but there were many, many seasons, most seasons, I was probably 6, 8, maybe even 10 bullpens in by the time I went to spring training. And I don't have to build any kind of longevity,
Right.
because I don't have the pitch count.
Right.
So I still had 7 weeks of spring training, but it was just I'm bored, I'm ready to pitch, I'm ready to
Right.
go. Let's get on the mound.
And yeah, I don't think anybody's really thinking that this guy's going to be one of their starters, but he, as a guy that could add to their bullpen rotation,
Sure.
particularly if he can get out there and show something, and we'll see.
One thing we have to remember is that just because you say this guy isn't going to be a starter, I'm not talking about you, I'm talking
Yeah, yeah.
anyone. If you're going to be a good reliever, you
Mhm.
actually have to throw strikes more than a starting pitcher does.
Absolutely.
Because if you're any kind of leverage reliever, short reliever, whatever you want to call it,
Mhm.
setup guy, uh, you have to be able to put the ball in the zone immediately. And
Yeah.
and so it's not a situation. Well, we're going to exile him. This isn't you know 70, 80 years ago. We're going to exile him to the bullpen because he can't throw strikes as a starting pitcher.
Right.
That ain't how it works.
Well, I feel like with the Astros, the thing that they've always done with pitchers, well, at least in this era, the Miller era, I guess we can call it, and prior to that, what they've really done is it's not so much that they necessarily improve guys' general pitches. They might, they start get more spin
Well,
rate. That
you have so much documentation now. You have so much
right.
analytics. They can, they've got camera
I
systems that
know. It's
cost
nuts.
hundreds of thousands of, and that is not an
No, it is
exaggeration.
not.
I was in spring training. It was pre-pandemic, so maybe 18, 19, something like that.
Mhm.
Doing a couple spring training games on television, and that was the day that they had gotten the system the day before and they had set it up. And Strami and I were talking, and he goes, yeah, it was like 7 or 8 cameras, and they're
Yep.
all positioned around the pitch from all different angles around the
Yep.
pitcher, and they're all simultaneously recording.
Yep.
They're also crazy, crazy fast.
Yes.
So our cell phones, as great as these are,
Oh, frames per second are yeah, it's
well,
nothing compared to those.
no, well, I mean, mine's an older phone,
Mhm.
and it's an iPad. They're 30 frames a second. You go, well,
Right.
that's fast. Well, when your arm's coming through the release zone and it's going 105, 106 miles an
Mhm.
hour, that's not very fast. It's going
No.
to be a blur. Actually, you may not even see much of it at all. I mean, you're talking, hundreds of frames a second, so they can
Yeah.
actually see exactly how the ball is releasing out of your
And
hand and
spinning.
then the spin. So, that's where they can actually come to more of a perfection
Yeah.
of spin, not just spin rate, but direction of spin, tilt, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So they can absolutely, and listen, the Astros probably are not unique as far as this camera.
Oh, I'm
That
sure
probably
not.
just about everybody has it now.
I would think
Back then,
so.
I don't think they did.
Maybe not the
Um,
A's.
maybe not. Well, at least not yet.
Not yet. Once they get to
not
Vegas.
not till they start getting that Vegas money.
Exactly.
Uh,
That's right.
but it's going to be one of those things to see if because the stuff what he throws is good. I mean, there's no
Yeah.
doubt about that. There's big swing and miss there. It's just a matter of being able to command it and put the ball in the zone.
Well, when you hear pitchers talk about what the Astros have done, a lot of what they do is say, "Listen, here's the pitch you throw best. Keep throwing it." That's
Yes,
this is what you do really well. Let's just keep hammering
it's
on
one of the
that.
things that the Rays have done for years
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
years and years, and there's many other considered great pitching coaches out there. And what do? Instead of telling you what you do wrong, let's build on what you do right,
Right.
and
Makes
let's
sense.
enhance that kind of stuff. And a lot of it has to do. It doesn't have as much to do with the actual stuff. It's got more to do with the confidence in what you're doing.
Right.
You know?
That makes a lot of sense,
Yeah,
actually. I mean,
it
it
does.
seems,
Well,
and
because
by
it's
the
such a
way,
this is such a negative sport.
right,
You know,
exactly.
it's all about
Yeah,
the whole three
tiny
out of
percentages.
10, all
Right,
that kind of stuff. You know, a pitcher, you put the ball exactly where you want it. You get the weak contact, and it's a blooper over shortstop.
right,
Now you're
exactly.
kicking rocks when you did everything right. So it's just one of those things that you have to take everything in small sample sizes, and that's why you don't hear, especially baseball players, talk about the results a whole lot. Well, they
Right.
do talk a lot. The basketball, they do this a lot, but even in
Process.
baseball, about the process. And what you're
Mhm.
talking about is you're talking about the mental process.
Right.
You know, is my mind in the right spot? Am I looking at what I'm supposed to be looking at? You know,
Yeah.
how is my time? Whatever it was, if all that's right, you have a better chance of success, but it does not guarantee
No, it does
success.
not guarantee success. By the way, speaking of the camera thing, I saw something the other day where a lot of this, interestingly enough, was born out of the Matrix, the bullet
Mhm.
time stuff in the Matrix. It's
Right.
true because
Yeah.
what those guys did is they wanted to get a 3D shot of somebody jumping in the air.
Sure.
So they lined up a bunch of literal physical cameras
That's
in
it.
a big circle, and so a lot of this is doing, but now what they're doing is, I just saw this the other day, they have this new technology that's starting to roll out in different ballparks, different places. It's mainly designed for television, but
Mhm.
what it does is they put hundreds of micro cameras like all over the place, and then using AI to fill in the gaps, which sounds a lot like Jurassic Park filling in the DNA gaps of
Right.
dinosaurs.
Right.
But they to fill in the gaps, you can literally get 360-degree angle views of the pitcher, of
Yeah.
like different positions on the field. It's wild. What's going to happen in the next 5 years with production of that kind of thing
Mhm.
is going to be nuts. We're going to see a lot
Well,
more than we probably
it's
wanted
to
to.
tell you the truth, it's a little scary.
Oh, it's
I mean,
totally scary.
for
A
where we
million different
are
reasons.
now and where we could be. I mean, yeah,
Oh,
it's and
it's
you know,
bonkers.
you know, don't want to go down this rabbit hole,
No.
but you know, there's always bad people out there that are trying to
Oh yeah,
do uh, unscrupulous things. So,
that's exactly right. You
you
don't
know,
want
it's
that. We'll
and it's going to
we'll
be there. So
for
that's the scary
well, right now we'll just say, hail ant overlords, as they said in The Simpsons.
part.
So, also Mike Burrows.
Cockroaches,
Yeah, exactly.
cockroaches. Yeah,
So, like Mike Burrows pitched the other day, looked
yeah,
really good.
he
You
did.
mentioned before we got on air about his changeup being legit. What have you seen from him just in the limited, tiny little amount?
Well, we saw a good fastball.
Mhm.
Fastball has good ride. You know, it was 94 miles an hour ish, somewhere in there. Um,
Take it.
the changeup is so good that it is a swing and miss pitch in the strike zone. Okay, and you don't get many guys that have that kind of stuff.
Especially a changeup.
But the fastball, well, the fastball changeup combination, if you have a good one and you can command it, it's actually the hardest combination. It's not a curveball. You know, you can say a split because a split finger is actually a type of changeup.
Mhm.
But that is the hardest combination because it really does look exactly like a fastball.
Coming out of the hand the same
And
way,
Burrows
same
is the
arm angle.
same arm slot, same
Mhm.
tunnel, everything like that, and the ball just simply doesn't get there. And then if you can add any kind of movement on top of that, now you're really talking about something special. And Burrows has that. I mean, he's got good arm side run. He's
Mhm.
got some sink to it. It's not the crazy thing is it's not a big speed differential
I was gonna
pitch.
ask what the difference in speed is.
Yeah, it's he was throwing 94, he was throwing his changeup, 86,
Oh, okay.
87. So, you're talking, 8 miles an
Yeah,
hour, which is a good number. That
it's
gives
still a
you good
lot.
speed differential. It's not 10 or 12 where,
Mhm.
you can really just throw it down the middle and it's going to be hard to hit.
Right.
But because of the location, because his command, because his confidence in the pitch, he throws it at any time. I mean, his first batter spring training, he went 94, uh, 87, 86, go to your room.
That's
And
pretty good.
actually the third pitch was kind of a hanger. It didn't he the first changeup he threw, the second strike was filthy. The second one was kind of up in the zone. It kind of hung in the middle of the plate, but because of the speed differential and the arm action,
Right.
he didn't hitter came wasn't anywhere close
Changeups are fascinating pitches to me too because,
to it.
and something that I've really learned just over the last few years of watching and reading and all of that is that, changeup used to be really the primary way you could fool guys like
Yeah.
years and years and years ago. Whereas now you can throw literally like you throw this like one pitch the same way, but just slightly different arm angles or like whatever. And
Right.
there's micro changes that have happened that that's so much more than it used to be.
One of the big pitches that we've seen the Astros, Hunter Brown came in. Hey, there's the dog.
Yeah.
Hunter Brown, Hunter, and they made a really really big deal about. At least they called it the right thing about him throwing a two seam fastball. He does not
Mhm.
throw a sinker. Okay, it's thrown the same way, but he does not have that sinking motion on the pitch. He's
Yeah.
got arm side run. And so what that means is now he had something to get inside on right-handers where he had always thrown the ball away. And that's kind of something that really has, pushed him forward in his career. Now right-handers can't just dive out over the plate expecting the ball away. He's throwing
Right.
the two-seamer in on the hands. Um, so is it an effective pitch? Yes, but it's also just as hard as his four seam fastball. So you got the four seam fastball with what's called the crazy thing is they call it life, which actually
Yeah.
means it's not doing anything at all. It's just going straight,
Just going
but
really
it's
good.
got ride, which means it doesn't sink. And then he's got the two seam fastball, which sometimes may have a little sink, but it's got the arm side run to it to get inside on right handers. So um, that's something that they're dealing with everybody, and it's kind of one
Right.
of the Astros thing. They like the two seam fastball, and you would love everybody to throw Fromber's sinking fastball,
Yeah.
but that's
Not everybody
just
has that skill set.
no, no,
Well,
they don't.
and it's interesting too, if you ever watch the videos from the pitching ninja guy,
Oh yeah,
um, really, it really
Rob
does help.
Rob something.
Yeah, yeah. It
Yeah.
really, I have his cap sitting up here that I love. It is fascinating to watch how he'll show four pitches
The
where
overlay.
they
Yeah.
overlaid where they all look the pitcher looks the same,
Mhm.
the arm slot is the same, the ball goes up to about 3 feet in front of the plate, and then it just goes
Right.
everything
Yeah.
goes every which direction.
And that's and it's a great example. Now, as tough as it looks on camera, think about being at
I
the plate
can't
on the
even
other side of the
imagine.
ball, and then you're trying to hit the ball. And it's one of the reasons why here in Major League Baseball, the off-speed stuff, we see more off-speed pitches than fastballs, and that's
Mhm.
because it doesn't matter how hard you throw. If you put the ball close to the zone, big league hitters can time it.
Yeah.
Aroldis Chapman does not have a 0 ERA. And what has he done to make himself successful here later in his career? Because he's still throwing just as hard.
Yeah.
His breaking balls got better. He throws
Right.
changeups. He's throwing other pitches. It's not just about Powder River throwing just throwing the ball by everybody because you just simply can't do it.
Yeah. That's exactly right. And I'm fascinated by like there was a time in my life where I thought, not that I thought I could hit it, but where I thought it'd be interesting to stand in the batter's box, and
Sure.
now I'm like, no thanks. I'm good.
Well, listen, it's and
I don't need to
the
see that
best. I
coming
mean, you're
at me.
talking you're talking about the best in the world,
Right.
okay, on both sides, the pitchers and the hitters, okay.
I just don't want to stand in there and have to watch it. I
But
would run like a scared
it would be,
child.
and it doesn't. If you do it on camera, it doesn't have the same effect.
Right.
If you could put some bulletproof glass up there or something like
Right.
that you could actually not be afraid. And listen, fear
Right.
factor is a big part of it, even with
Yeah.
big league hitters.
Right.
There's something, but you see big league hitters all the time. They kind of flinch or they kind of squirm or their legs get a little jello. That's fear factor.
I
That's
don't need
just that's just a hitter's reaction to a ball that seemingly is coming
right.
right at them.
I don't need the nickname Flinch for the rest of my life. Like
But
this,
but what it would be if you could do it and then just actually
just
see
watch it.
yeah, and you look at, okay, well, how can somebody time up 100 miles an hour? Well, you see it enough, it's not extraordinary.
Right.
You
Well,
know, I mean,
if you got enough
this
bat
has been
speed.
said. This has been well. It's not even bat speed. It's about just getting the bat out in
Oh
front.
yeah, that's true.
A bunt.
Right.
Heck,
That's
somebody
true.
throwing that hard. I mean, you get a double on a bunt,
I can't even imagine sticking my entire body in front of the plate for a bunt against a
right? Right?
fastball. Like, Jesus Lord, I would probably that would be it for me. I wouldn't die from being hit by the ball. I'd die of
Yeah.
a heart attack.
Well, the first thing you'd have to do is if it didn't hit you and you're not laying on the ground, you probably have to go inside and change your pants.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking. All right. One other thing I want to touch on is we have this rotation of sort of 5 young guys
Yeah.
that are all kind of vying for what I feel like is probably going to be 2 spots on the
Mhm.
roster. Now, the Cam Smith, I think, has the inside track to be one of those
Sure.
guys simply because of his
I
track
agree.
record last year. And I honestly think you might get two more of these guys onto the
Mhm.
roster, maybe, but you have Zach Cole, Bryce Matthews,
Right.
Zach DeZenzo, and then recently acquired Joey Loperfido, who they brought back. Like, first of all, left-handed bats are probably going to get priority. So
Mhm.
Loperfido and Zach Cole are probably going to get the priority simply because they bat from the left side of the plate. Also, Zach Cole, the organization is very high on Zach Cole.
Yeah.
They've been high on him, and I think they feel like he can be like not just at the plate, but he's tremendously good defensively.
Mhm.
Um, the interesting thing is, I think Bryce Matthews could end up being maybe the best of the bunch of them in the
Could be.
end because of just his skill set.
Yeah.
But there's no chance he's probably going to play at the major league level until later in the season, unless there's an injury, simply because his primary position is second base. And they, I mean, they're playing him some in center field.
You
I
got a
get
Hall of Famer
that.
there.
You got it, but yeah. And never mind, Isaac Paredes is definitely going to get some time. And DeZenzo is just a good all-around dude that can play a lot of different positions, but he's a right-handed bat, and I'm
Right.
just not sure they're gonna want to keep that. When you're doing this, if as a young player, this has got to be a situation that puts you in, like, makes you uncomfortable, right? Because on one hand, if you're the Astros organization and your fans, you want the absolute best players up playing in the majors, right?
Sure.
But if you're an organization who's trying to balance roster spots and everything else, and of course the Astros are doing everything they can to save these minor league to save guys for the minors so they can move guys up and down.
Right.
It makes for a kind of a complicated situation.
It does. I mean, the Astros, we've talked about this in previous podcasts that the Astros roster is incomplete.
Mhm.
And it's not incomplete because they don't have enough players. They have
Right.
enough players. They just don't have necessarily the right players.
Right.
You got too many infielders and not enough outfielders.
Yeah, certainly not a veteran ones.
I really think that Cam Smith probably does have the inside track because he was up all season last year.
Right.
He's still the same guy that we saw in spring training last year and
Mhm.
early in the season when he was really swinging the bat well. The
He
league made
walks a
some
lot too.
the league made some adjustments, and that's what
Mhm.
he has to do is make adjustments back to him, back to the league. I think Loperfido is a guy that, especially maybe right out of spring training, because of his experience last year
Mhm.
with the Blue Jays, and he made some swing changes. Okay,
Yeah.
I can say personally, I was not impressed with the swing when he came up. I thought it was too much uppercut. I thought he spent too much time under the ball, and I thought big league pitchers were going to be able to manipulate that, and they did. But he made some changes when he got to Toronto,
Mhm.
and you look at his numbers last year. Even though the sample size wasn't very big, he
Mhm.
did a much better job of
He
putting the
did.
ball in play. So I think that, and he's left-handed. So I
Yeah.
think, especially
Right.
early in spring, unless he just has a terrible spring, I think he may have the inside track. I think it's probably going to be Cam Smith and Loperfido right now, but you've still got, 28,
Yeah.
27 exhibition games and a whole month to figure out, who's going to be the best for those spots.
And also, we haven't even mentioned Taylor. Is it Trammell or Trammell? I always get it mixed up. But that's another left-handed veteran
Yeah.
that they have in the outfield. Now, of course, you could put him on the bench or whatever, but I think that I like the competition in the outfield, and I agree with what you said about Loperfido. He became more of a contact hitter
Yeah.
as opposed to get swinging for the fences, and I think
Mhm.
that's where he needs to be. I'm very interested to watch this battle though, because there's going to be somebody in camp who's going to start smoking the ball, and they're going
Yes.
to, and if it's one of the guys who maybe isn't going to make the roster, there's going to be the clamor, just like there was last year for Cam Smith.
Always, and that's why we started off talking about how you got to take spring training in September with a grain of salt
Yep.
because the sample size is small, especially in spring training because you've had all off season to get your
Right.
swing right.
You're
Physically
healthy.
you're in a good spot. There's not even though young guys there's still going to be emotions. It's still not big league regular season
Right. You're
emotions.
loose, you know.
Yeah, and you're in you're in. We talked about. I also said something about how the monotony of spring training. Well,
Yeah.
for young guys, it's not monotony because you're trying to make a club,
Right.
but you're playing at day games. You're not under the lights. It's there's just it's kind of a perfect world for young guys to, or really anybody to go into spring training and perform. Then you get sleep patterns have to change,
Hmm.
travel, all the stuff that goes with the regular season, along with playing, making an open a day roster. So there's a lot of emotion goes with that.
At some point, I think it would be a good thing for us to talk about the difference between playing in the daytime in bright sunny weather and
Yeah.
playing at night, because I don't think people recognize how big of a difference that is.
It really is. I mean, lighting has gotten much better. I mean, I've played
Hmm.
in some stadiums back,
I can't
especially when I came
imagine.
up or in the minor leagues. You had shadows without anything blocking the light.
That's just creepy.
It's like you had a light and there's a cloud in front of the light, and that's what you're trying to play it.
So funny.
But
Oh
that's
my
all
god.
changed, and with the advancement in LEDs and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff, and it is different. And listen, daylight isn't always the best,
No, it's
especially when you get later in the day. Now you start getting real shadows, and
right. And also
but
clouds, like, it looks the same color of the ball, I mean,
oh yeah,
there's a lot of
high
that kind of
sky.
stuff.
You don't have any
High s
clouds
Yeah.
at all. High skies.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I read a couple things last year about Sacramento guys playing, because they're playing in a minor league ballpark
Right.
against the A's, and a lot of guys were like, "You have to get adjusted because the ball comes up and there are no seats behind it."
Yeah.
Because the
There's no
stadium's so much
background. The
lower, there's no
background is
background.
yes.
So trying to see where the ball is, you're just like immediately disoriented by
Well,
that.
that's one of the problems that they've had for years with Dyken Park.
Oh,
Even
right.
last year, the year before, they started expanding the hitting background.
Yeah.
The green, which was always the
Batter's
wall,
eye.
they pushed that to right center field some more to try and help the right-handed hitters that they're just not picking up the ball. And that all started, was it
It
was it
was
2017 when
Yeah,
they
I think
did
it
the
was 17.
renovations? You know,
Right.
Springer in right field misplayed a couple, two or three balls early in the season, and they had to readjust the lights. Where are the lights?
Right.
He would
That's
go to his
wild that
right.
they
He
hit
would go
those.
to his right, and the ball was always in one of the groups of lights, and so they had to turn them and do all that. I mean, so there's adjustments.
Man,
It's not as easy just saying, "Oh, just put lights on it and everything's
I'd
good."
love to be a fly on the wall for those conversations. I bet those are fascinating. It's like, "That
Yeah, no
damn light's
doubt,
right in my
and
eyeballs."
probably heated. It's
Oh.
probably not you and me talking
And
right here.
and and the people who suffer, the poor equipment guys who are just running around like, "All
Yeah.
right, well, you need
Well,
me to climb
how
you need
about
me
the
to
dude?
climb to the top of the
That's
stadium
right.
again?"
The dude needs
It's
to
just
go up in
like
the hanging off of a toenail, trying to adjust the
absolutely
lights just
not.
2 or 3 degrees
Abs
to the right, so
Absolutely
Springer
not.
of all people, so Springer can catch the ball.
Exactly. All right, thanks everybody for joining us. Spring training still firing away. It's actually a fun time of the year to be a
It
baseball
is.
fan,
It is.
and it's
Hope
so much
spring
fun.
eternal.
Hope spring eternal. That's it. Thanks so much for being with us. We will see you again next week. As always, go Astros.
Adios.